Hey guys, it is Wednesday, January 21st. 21st, yeah. It's around 9:30ish. It's late. I've had a very busy day. Um, and I've had Taylor Swift stuck in my head for like half of it, including right now. It's kind of really distracting actually. But let's read some comics. Anyway, starting this week with Red Sonja number 14. Really nice cover here. Just really like it, is all. Um, and we're continuing with the storyline with Sonja unable to forgive her, well, anybody, really. No matter how small how petty it is, she can't forgive anything. Um, And we start off with the bar from last issue that she was kicked out of after almost murdering a couple guys. Um, so rude. With the villain for this arc, well, the one that isn't, the Sonya's lack of remorse. And the one thing that really struck about him was just how freaky looking this guy is. He's missing an eye. He has two nails where it is. He just has all these weird piercings and this hairline that looks like electricity. He's just this really kind of just, you know, freak show character. Just really kind of unnerving character design. And I know that probably says a lot more about me than 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 it than it should. But just I really like his character design. It's just really kind of creepy looking. It's really effective, I think. And after this short bit, we join Sonja again as she recaps kind of her quest now that she cannot forgive, which is to hunt down the man who escaped when she killed everybody else who killed her family. Pretty reasonable. Um, I'm sorry, my sleeves are bothering me right now because they're not buttoned and they're not folded up either, you know? You ever do that with like shirts like this and they just kind of fly all over the place and really bother your wrists. Anywho, back to Red Sonja. Again with the notes, they're really helping me keep on track, I think. So yeah, she's talking about this guy who then just happens to pop up. Oh, also, I do believe this is the first time since Gail Simone took over Red Sonja that she has actually managed to have gotten laid. So, congrats to Red Sonja over there for finally getting the D. Um, so yeah, the guy she wants to kill ends up trying to kill her. Pretty convenient, finding finding himself for her, and she's faced to deal with the curse in probably like the most kind of solid, direct way possible. The guy explains how after doing what he did, he felt like great remorse. He was so regretful of his past life that he never killed again. He decided he's just gonna try and make amends as much as possible. It's the sort of thing that after after he tells this kind of sob story, you expect Sonja to go, or any superhero to go, okay, I forgive you. I mean, you're still going to jail, but I forgive you, that sort of thing. But Sonja's not able to do that, if you remember. So she starts a big fight and is outnumbered, but ends up winning anyway with a pretty good fight scene that I'm not going to show you because I've already kind of shown you half the book, which feels like cheating, But yeah, just a really good fight scene that gets right into Sonja's head, and you see how the curse really does only affect like forgiveness. She's not like crazy. She has this new bloodlust, but she's still the same sort of analytical, well-trained, skilled warrior. Like she's not like in a rage, she's not mad. She's just kind of pitiless, which is I just think it's a really good fight scene. And Gail Simone, and she's noted this on social media too. Gail Simone takes really good care in directing all of the fight scenes that she writes in comic books, in order to tell stories with them. And I think in this case, it's very effective. Um, and then at the end, um, she decides to get rid of the curse in the only way she knows how. And being that she's not a magician, it is a definitely something I didn't see coming, and I think it's a really kind of novel thing they do there. Um, I'm really looking forward to the next issue to see how everything resolves, you know. And I don't know if it'll be in the next issue. These Red Sonja arcs haven't really been that long without any sort of internal timer to keep the pace, like, you know, 5 books rescuing 5 people. Like, this doesn't have that sort of timer, so I don't think it's going to be that long of an arc. Kind of hoping it ends next issue because just as a reader, I prefer shorter arcs. But yeah, this one is really cool, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's a bit, you can say ham-fisted, I guess, in that, you know, you give Sonja the a curse where she can't forgive, and then you immediately kind of force her to forgive someone. And not in like a very nuanced way. It's just literally someone asking for forgiveness. But other than that, you know, kind of that's not really a criticism. That's just, you know, pointing out that it's kind of a simple setup, which again doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's simple. And I'm trying to cuff up my sleeves here because it's actually kind of uncomfortably warm in my room despite the season. Yeah. So, still enjoying the book, I guess, is the end of that. And we'll move on to Moon Knight. I spent 6 minutes on one book. That is insane. Jeez. Okay. Yes. Moon Knight. We're going to speed it up a bit now. So, last issue, we ended up with Mark Spector getting arrested for tackling a diplomat. And in this issue, we see him in jail. We start off with this really nice spread here. I really enjoy it. I really like how this comic uses panels in order to tell a story without words, just in terms of panel layout. And I think this one is really effective. And this whole book just has a very consistent tone mood to it. That gave me a very strong Portal kind of vibe. As you can see here, like everything's kind of white and sterile. Very, just reminding me a whole lot of Aperture Labs, windows that seem to lead into nowhere. Always being watched, people talking to you, but kind of through you at the same time, you know? Just really good atmosphere setting up the mood of this piece, which is that he's not in solitary, but he is alone and he is trapped, you know? Just really effective atmosphere there. And while he's in prison, and even though he is no longer bonded to Khonshu, we find out that he is still talking with him. They're still having conversations, and Khonshu's being kind of a jerk to him, which I guess is to be expected from a very old god who brought you back from the dead to, you know, make you do his bidding in the first place. But yeah, really interesting dynamic the two have. He's kind of like Q from Next Generation. At least that's how I'm reading him a bit. You know, where he knows the answer, but he's not telling you because he's a dick. That sort of thing. And again, I just really like the art in this book. I like the kind of charcoal lines. Yeah, I just like the texture of it. No, nothing more to really say there. Moving on to a twofer, we have the amazing the Spider-Verse team up and Amazing Spider-Man number 13, or Spider-Verse Part 5. And the reason I'm reviewing these two together, something in my eye. It's an eyelash or something. Anywho, the reason I'm reviewing these two together is because I'm confused as to which one comes first. I mean, this one has a story that it's one complete story that definitely ends before a story in this one, but the backup story in this one doesn't make sense unless it takes place before this one. So I've decided to review the two together. Um, More or less, I'm going to start with. You know what? I'll start with Amazing Spider-Man. I just made that decision right now. So we start off where we left off last issue with a majority of the Spider-Men fleeing to a. Actually, no. We start off in Loom World, where. Yeah, this is the right book. Okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Like I said, long day, very busy. Taylor Swift, shake it off. Um, we start off in Loom World with Lord Solace and everyone saying, "I'm sorry, they escaped," blah blah blah, and Solace saying, "It's okay, Spider-Man no more," reference to the famous, uh, famous Spider-Man story that I think I mentioned in the last video, though not by name. But yeah, anywho, moving on. I'm going slow. I don't know why. I'm just feeling tired, I guess. Then we go to Ben, Uncle Ben, Spider Ben. I'm gonna call him Spider Ben. To Spider Ben's backstory, which is similar, of course, to all the other Spider-Man backstories, but in this one he gave up, and so that's actually pretty neat because they have him mention Spider-Man no more. You immediately flip the page and you get the cover of Spider-Man no more, but with Ben instead of Peter. So yeah, we see his backstory and why he's now in this bunker instead of dead with everybody else on his planet. And you know, it's not too interesting, but it gives all the other Spider-Man something to talk about, and that makes the story interesting. You know, seeing all these interactions between the Spider-Men. What else we got here? We then have Spider-Man India having a existential crisis where he's watching Peter Parker, our Peter Parker, Amazing Spider-Man, and he kind of realizes we're all so similar. I feel like just a copy of this guy. Yeah, that he is the real Spider-Man, and I am just some sort of strange reflection, which is very meta, a very meta moment in this book that I just enjoyed as a reader. We also have now, we have Silk, who is one of the three special spiders, the Bride. She goes to Loom World in an attempt to save Spider-Woman and gets trapped there. And then the same thing, or a very similar thing, happens to Kane, who goes to avenge Ben Reilly. Kane is the last of the three, or Kane is another one of the three, the last of the three being baby Benji Parker, Spider-Girl's younger brother, who's already there from the beginning. And so now we have definitely approaching the climax of Spider-Verse, where we have all three of the special Spider-Men, or Spider Totems, in Loom World with the Inheritors. And we also find out why they're so special and what the Inheritors plan to do with them. But I'm not going to get into too much detail there. Then at the very end of this book, Otto Octavius makes a great speech, because it's essentially a villain speech, but it's a villain speech delivered heroically. All the other Spider-Men are trying to convince Uncle Ben Spider to join the fight with him, even though he's already given up and he feels just awful about it, but he doesn't want to try again, feet of clay. And Otto gives this great speech about how, as a villain, he's failed over and over and over, but he always tries again. And it's like, yeah, that is a virtue, but you know, it's like, you know, if he ever succeeded, then he destroys the world. It's just I thought a very funny moment, but also like a very kind of sentimental one. You know, the villain giving the motivational speech, not exactly what you'd expect. And then we end the book with all the spiders going off to the final battle. Except not quite, as we find out in Spider-Verse Team Up. We find out that also the first story in this one is also called Too Many Spider-Men, which was the name of the story in the last Spider-Verse crossover book. Just kind of confusing, threw me through a loop when I first read it. So we join all the Spider-Man as they leave the bunker to recruit, or to go towards the final battle, where they run into Aunt May, the Spider-Man, which is, I just love it. I love Spider-Man. It's pretty great. And they also run into Karn, who of course kind of started this whole thing, or was the first kind of thing, what happened in the book. And all of Karn's dialogue here just reminds me of Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. We find, we already have the thing of him going off to hunt spiders, spider totems, in order to kind of regain his place in the family. And just all of his dialogue here reminds me of that. It's like, no, destiny, I gotta see my family again. What does he say? No, destiny cannot be denied. I must earn my way back into the family. And then later on, he says, oh, what does he say later on? Gosh darn it. Yeah, just I can't find it. I should have written down the page in my notes. My notes, you failed me. But basically, just got a lot of Prince Zuko vibes with him kind of doing all this just to earn his place back in the family. What else? Oh yes, Punk Spider-Man has probably the best line in this whole book when he headbutts Karn right here and basically says, kind of one of the very many kind of punk truisms, which is that you gotta keep fighting, The power structure has you think in a certain way, and you gotta think different, which is very punk, very crush the patriarchy, both things I'm very for. So, yeah, gotta love Punk Spider-Man. And then I'm not going to really spoil the rest, but needless to say, it is an interesting wrinkle in the Spider-Verse story, and I want to see how it plays out in the last Spider-Verse book, which is coming out, I don't know, 2 weeks? So, excited for that. The backup story then involves Mayday Parker and Uncle Ben Parker, Uncle Ben Spider. This seems to take place before they all decide to leave to do the events in the first story, so it's still kind of unclear the timing between the two books, or even between the two stories in this one book. But you have a very kind of impulsive Mayday who's kind of being driven by the anger of her brother being kidnapped and wants to go and fight her, earn it back. Being balanced out with with Ben Parker, who is, from what we know of Ben Parker and from what he does in this book, very calm-headed, likes to think about things, not rash at all, just the opposite of rash. And in this one, as in the last book, kind of clay-footed. He's almost afraid to move, it seems. But yeah, you got some nice dialogue between the two there. Uncle Ben clears up the great power, great responsibilities thing, which is always, I don't know, I find it kind of helpful. It hasn't really been spoken ad nauseum a lot recently, I guess. And when you have a story like this that is kind of getting at the heart of the essential Spider-Man mythos, having, Uncle Ben clear the air and, put that, like, here's what that thing really means, kind of feels like an essential part of the Spider-Man mythos to get aligned. What else? And yeah, it's just nice you get some nice dialogue here between kind of, the impulsive and the sloth. The impulsive and the cautious, I guess, is a nice way to put it. And so that is that book. Moving on to DC, starting with Wonder Woman issue 38. There we go. Um, Now, what really confused me, first of all, I like the cover. Just angry, ferocious God of War Wonder Woman. I think it's a neat illustration, neat little drawing there. Now, when I first read this, I was a little confused because the first scene in this book, which is about a third of the book, so the first third of the book seems to be a dream sequence. Um, but I'm still not exactly confident in saying that because they never make it explicitly clear that nothing was real in it. Actually, it's more like the first half of the book now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, the way it works is you have Diana on Themyscira battling a Hydra. A lot of the other Amazons have been felled at this point. Really cool looking Hydra. Really good art in this book. I'm liking it a lot more than I did Finch's art on Forever Evil. But yeah, I mean this was kind of one of the big promotional images for the new Wonder Woman run, or it seems to be a similar pose. Just really good art, I think. Yeah. So like this whole part where she fights the Hydra seems to be a dream because she wakes up in her bed, but she's also covered in blood, and I'm still unclear as to whose blood it is. I don't think it's Diana's. If it's a dream, then it's not like any of the other Amazons' blood. I don't think. I mean, it kind of looks like she's crying the blood, which might be a part of turning into the God of War. Is that now you cry blood? But it's not exactly clear what happened, and I don't think that's intentional. I don't think it's an intentional ambiguity. I just think it's kind of a failure to convey whether or not something is a dream. And then the rest of the book, after she wakes up, is everybody kind of bothering her about bothering Diana about being the God of War, and it's something everyone's asking. You have her friend over here. Later, you have Batman and the Justice League who's asking about it, and everyone's kind of wondering, well, do you feel any changes at all? How do you plan on handling this new responsibility and all these new powers and everything? And Diana's in denial about it, which I think is like a novel kind of story thing. Is you have a character like Wonder Woman, this paragon who's in denial about a part of herself. Yeah, it's just interesting because you think these characters are, as kind of perfect as people who are fully recognized and recognize themselves and who have this really high self-esteem, but then you have this part of Diana that makes her uncomfortable. And it's really interesting to see how she's facing kind of a threat from the inside, a threat of, like the consciousness, which is just pretty interesting. And of course, you have an outside threat, which, as revealed by the end of this book, seems to be Donna Troy, who is a kind of artificially grown Amazon who was grown to be the new queen in Wonder Woman's absence. And this is the first time they're introducing Donna Troy into the New 52 universe, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. Donna Troy, of course, being the original Wonder Girl. So I'm excited to see where they take this version of her. And she does look pretty cool. It's kind of like M. Bison armor, is what it's reminding me of, but I think it looks neat. Moving on now to Future's End, which begins with a it begins with the Batman bot fight that happens or has been going on since the last two issues in segments. And like the first two parts of this, I feel like this fight has been cut short a bit. The part ends abruptly, and then everyone just kind of seems to flee. I feel like they're chopping it up in a way that makes each scene feel incomplete, and I would much rather, at this point, have this entire fight as its own separate book in the story instead of being split over a number of them. But it also seems like they're finally fully integrating Bruce Wayne Batman into the Future's End story, which, as a Batman fan, I'm excited to see. I also feel like the same thing of cutting the story off right when it's about to feel fulfilling happens in this next bit, which continues the fight between Dr. Polaris and I don't know his name, but Dr. Polaris and this guy continues the fight with him. Captain Marvel, Superman ends up intervening, and then the story cuts out right before it kind of gets interesting, which, again, it feels like a tease, but not like a tease that makes me wonder what happens next. It feels like a tease where I already know what happens next, and they're just keeping it away from me, which doesn't feel all that good as a reader. But the rest of this book I actually liked quite a bit more than the first half. We rejoin 50 Sue, Cole, and Lana as they are in the middle of the desert. 50 Sue just teleported them along with the vault with all the superhero DNA samples. And what's really great about this book is, about this part of the book, is the dialogue, because you have Cole and Lana really kind of adjusting to their role as 50 Sue's parents, and I just think the dialogue is very well written. It's them saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm such a mom now," sort of stuff, which I found entertaining. And then we join Amethyst and Frankenstein as they go back to Castle Frankenstein and discover that Dr. Frankenstein is still alive, and I love this. Dr. Frankenstein is just one of my kind of favorite characters in all of fiction. Just because I like thinking about what his character could mean. Me and my friend Adam, who you might remember if you've been watching me review comics long enough, kind of have this thing about Dr. Frankenstein where we say like he's kind of an underrated scientist considering his accomplishment. So we like to imagine that there's like this public domain Avengers sort of thing, and you have one of the villains like go up to one of his henchmen and say, "What do you mean you can't build me a zombie? Dr. Frankenstein did this in a basement with a pile of scraps." Kind of like he's like this old Victorian version of Tony Stark, because he does invent this great thing. And anyway, I'm kind of nerding out about Frankenstein, but I think he's a really cool character, and I'm glad to see him show up here, and I really wonder how they're going to use him. Next book is Justice League, issue 38. Continuation of the Amazo arc. Where we left off, Batman had just been infected, and now we find out about Batman's powers. And Batman's powers involve shooting lasers out of his mouth, which is pretty cool. Pretty sweet splash page, I think, we got here. Just Batman shoot the whooping, patient zero, knocking him out cold. I'm sorry, I just think that's neat. It's really kind of dumb, but also really neat, in my opinion. Another great scene we have is, and again, it's a very kind of Jeff Johns scene, is we see what happened to Lex Luthor. Last it seemed he had just been shot in the head, but it's revealed that Captain Cold jumped in, and Captain Cold is such a fucking badass in this book. He just owns this assassin dude. It's just nuts how easy he disposes of him. And I love this thing that Jeff Johns does where he turns these characters who are kind of joke characters and not taken seriously, and shows everyone just how cool they can be. Like, just how serious he can be. Like, this is a guy who routinely goes up against the Flash, who's one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. And, just as a normal guy, we see now how he competes and just how competent he is. It's just a really cool thing that Jeff Johns does with characters, and I really like how he's doing it with Captain Cold here. We also have more of Lex Luthor being a dick, which isn't out of character, forces Superman to behave impulsively around him. To be expected. Luthor's a dick. And then at the very end of this book, we have Justice League Zombies. Again, like kind of the Batman shooting lasers, really kind of dumb sounding, but at the same time done in such a way, executed in such a way where I really want to read more and really want to find out what they do with this. So congratulations, Jeff John. Justice League was really good, like definitively just a straight up good book, in my opinion, for the first time in a while. So really cool stuff there. And now, down to the last 3 books. We might get this done in under 40 minutes. We have Batman and Robin. First off, great cover. There's, Damian doing the classic Superman thing, pulling down the shirt, revealing the costume, bulletproof. Just really kind of fun cover. And this book is just kind of a fun book. Starts off really fun, where we have Damian waiting above Bruce Wayne's bed, waking him up and demanding to go on patrol. And just within these first 3 pages, you have just this great kind of feeling like, all right, Batman and Robin back together, the dynamic duo, classic Batman and Robin. And Batman even says, "Haven't you heard we're the dynamic duo?" Please be able to read this. It's funny. No. Anywho. He says, "Haven't you heard we're the dynamic duo?" So just reestablishing, okay, Robin's been dead for a while, but now he's back, and they're jumping right back into the groove of things. And it's really great. We also have a lot of really good Bat Dad scenes. Just Batman being a father, which is fun. They're fun things. So after the fight, Damian pulls a Looney Tunes on this guy. And after the fight, Damian tries to fly away, and Batman's like, "No, you're grounded." It's just great. Batman dealing with the son with superpowers. Just fun stuff. This is a very, very fun book, and Bruce Wayne has a lot of those moments now. Just in the next page, fair isn't until you're 21. Come on, brightness, adjust. Yeah. Fair doesn't start until you're 21. Just a lot of... I like Bat Dad. I like reading Bat Dad dialogue, and I like Damian, and I like Batman and Robin back together. Classic Batman and Robin. Just great stuff. And then at the end, we have Robin kind of explore himself more. He's been having nightmares, and he decides to free his mind of that. And it's a good kind of back half of the book, is Damian deciding what to do now that he's alive again. So yeah, definitely a good Batman and Robin book. I'd pick it up if I haven't been reading Batman and Robin for a while, because it's like jumping right back into gear. I had a lot of fun with the book. Next up is Batman Eternal, which, as you can tell from the cover, covers Bluebird, Gotham's new hero, who finally kind of came into her own at the very last bit of last issue. And so now this book, 90% about her as she goes to save all the other sidekicks. And I love how it opens up with just her leaping from the rooftop, leaping across rooftops, and womp womp. Because, she's still a beginner. She's been trained, she's confident in everything, but it still takes practice. And it's not the only time in this book that she kind of falls on her butt at the most comical opportunity. We also, through this book, have a bit of a hope spot for Stephanie Brown. She was kidnapped in the last episode. I had assumed it was by Catwoman, but it's actually by her mom, who wants to keep her safe. So kind of like a sweet, moment of breath for her. She's been on the run for a while, and just empathizing with this character, like, oh, you get some room to breathe now. Feels kind of good for pacing. Yeah, and then we kind of jump back to Bluebird doing her first mission alone. Big mission too, fighting pretty much everyone, because everyone is infected by nanobots, and she has to stop it at the center. And yeah, just throughout this book, it's Mad Hatter, so he's talking about how everyone now is a puppet on strings, And this comic, I think, does everything but say that there ain't no strings on her. Like, I was totally expecting that in this book. So yeah, in this page you have another kind of womp womp moment. She tries to throw a smoke pellet, throws a batarang instead. Great little just kind of stuff like that. Yeah, I just through this book I expected Bluebird to say, everyone's a puppet, but there ain't no strings on me, because that's the thing that's popular to say now because of the Avengers. So yeah. And then at the very end, Catwoman does make an appearance, and for some reason, I don't know why, she's dressed up as Uma Thurman from Pulp Fiction. I don't know, man, but yeah. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this issue. I think it had really done kind of moments of kind of levity in the moment of a very kind of serious bit of the book. We have the introduction of this new character in her new kind of persona, which is interesting, and yeah, just pretty good book, more focused than some of the previous issues have been, which I think allows you to tell a better story for a book than splitting up all the threads and smushing them into a single book per week. And then we have my favorite issue this week, the one I wanted to review last, Batman and Superman issue 18. And let me tell you, I squeed at this book. Like, I actually made a high-pitched noise during the reading of this book. And I'm going to have to establish why in a bit, but we start off this book with the funeral of the guy who died in the first issue of this arc. He was trying to entertain children at a hospital by dressing up as Superman and got shot, which is a very sweet way to open the book. You're having Superman think about this, and just another good kind of establishing moment for well, not establishing, but re-establishing character moment for Superman, where you have, oh yeah, this is the guy who cares about everybody, even in the middle of a crisis where his caring about people is getting them killed in a way. Then we have kind of Superman run into Kara. Superman is going back to the Fortress of Solitude, which apparently is in the process of healing. I wasn't reading Superman books for a big chunk during the Doomed arc. Apparently the Fortress of Solitude got destroyed and now it has to heal itself. And Superman's trying to use it to get information on who might be behind all these things. But Kara stops him because it might make the fortress not able to work or something, which means that Kandor will be forever trapped in its bottle. And then we go to the bits that just make me squee, that make me feel so happy to read this book. So in the last issue, we also have Batman go to Lois Lane and says, Lois, I need you as a plan, or I need you for a plan that I'm planning. And we find out what Batman's plan is. Batman's plan is basically to use Lois as bait. We know that whoever's behind this is killing off the people that Superman loves before anybody else in order to make him pay for whatever. But, hitting him in the heart, well, the feelings, destroying his soul rather than his body. And so Batman figures Superman loves Lois Lane, so that's how we're gonna draw this guy out into the open. But the way they set this up, it's just great. So as I said, I might need to explain this. So there's this cartoon called The Legend of Korra. Very popular, very good cartoon. Well, not very popular, but very popular among the people who I think also read comic books. I think there's a big crossover. I don't know if I have to explain this exactly. But in The Legend of Korra, one of the ships through the 4 seasons of the show, one of the main pairings that have been is between the main character Korra and then one of her friends Asami. Both are girls, so this is like a lesbian ship, which isn't rare in fandom, but was unique because throughout the series it was very heavily teased that this was in fact a pairing. And so through the entire series, there'd be things like Korra blushing whenever Asami was in a room, or noting that they seem to be closer friends than anybody else. During a moment of like Korra's being away for 3 years, he only writes letters to Asami, and so there are all these hints that this kind of fan shipping, this lesbian fan shipping was actually canonical. And for an animated cartoon, one that was aired on Nickelodeon, a lot of people said, even though they're dropping these hints because they can't make it an actual thing in the cartoon. And then in the very final episode of the very final season, Korra and Asami like walk off into the sunset together, and everyone's like freaking out, like, "Oh my god, it's actually canon! They are canon bisexual characters in this show," and that's really cool and like really influential. And then like people were still like denying it. It's like, no, they just walk into the sunset. They're just good friends. And then the creators of the show said, no, they're bisexual. They're in a relationship now. Deal with it. And it was just like this really great thing that I just really enjoyed as an Avatar fan watching the show. I mean, I don't generally ship, but the way they interacted was like so cute. I couldn't resist. And so when this book, Batman is describing his plan to Superman, and he says, I'm going to read it because I don't want to deal with the brightness settings on my camera. But he says to Superman that he wants to break your heart. He's trying to figure out who you really love. He wants the person you confide in the most, the person who understands you the best, the person you'd miss forever the person you'd miss the most if they were gone forever. And then Superman asks, who are you talking about? And Batman asks, who do you think? And I'm just reading this and I'm like, oh my god, that's Batman. Batman is the person that Superman confides in most. Batman is the person who understands Superman most. They're like, oh my god, Batman and Superman. They're totally shipping Batman and Superman. And then they say Lois Lane, which is another really good answer, especially considering all the stuff that DC was doing with, oh no, it's going to be Superman, Wonder Woman now, and a lot of, like, including me, I like Superman, Lois Lane, but anywho, like, I was totally ready for Batman, Superman. I was like, oh my gosh, you're doing this. You're doing the Korrasami thing. Really cool. And then they're like, Lois Lane's like, okay, it's still cool. But then, later in the book, well, first of all, before anything else happens, Superman is officially no longer faster than a speeding bullet. So we have that. And then, like, we established that this killer is out for the person Superman loves the most. And we think, okay, they're setting up as Lois. This is definitely Lois. But then, no, the bullet goes for Batman. It was like, oh my god, Batman is the character that Superman cares about most. Batman, Superman forever. You know? Like, that's the pairing. It's even in the title. It's the title of this book, Batman, Superman. All you're missing is an X, you know? Because, like, they love each other so much. And they reestablish the whole thing as Batman is dying, falling off this cliff. That Batman is the one who understands you the best, and the one you'll miss more than any other when they die. And Superman just holds Batman in his hands and says, Batman. And it's like so sweet. And it's like, I just love it. I love just like I know it's not canon. It's not like Batman is the character that Superman loves most because you have Lois. Like, he's already a very kind of established heterosexual character and blah, 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 blah. But I love that this comic plays around with that idea, especially kind of right after the Korrasami thing. And, you know, it's probably just a coincidence, but I like just this general trend. It's just, I'm sorry, it's just so great, and I'm going to nerd out about this a bit more even after I'm done recording this video. But it's great. Yeah, it's great. And then the actual end of this book has another neat twist that reveals more about the main story. But the reason I love this book is for the Batman-Superman shipping. And I think that is the perfect sentence to end this review on. So, just for formalities, thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts, comments, feel free to leave them down below. Feel free to PM me, message me, whatever. If you liked this video, if you want to hear more of this every week, please subscribe, and I will talk to you about comics every Wednesday or Thursday or whenever you decide to watch these videos. And yeah, thank you for watching.